Right now, down on the sweltering grass in Eagan, Minnesota, college resumes are literally turning to dust. August in the National Football League is an absolute pressure cooker, and raw reality is taking over. Careers are being made, and lifelong dreams are being shattered in real time. We're watching a brand new general manager in Teasley and head coach Kevin O'Connell desperately trying to build a legitimate contender, all while managing a ridiculously complex roster puzzle that shifts with every single practice rep.
And this entire puzzle starts with a number that defines modern football: 4.37. Look, that isn't just fast. That is game-breaking, elite, terrifying speed. That is the official 40-yard dash time belonging to Demon Claiborne, the running back the Vikings selected at 198th overall in the 6th round at Wake Forest. Now, to truly understand why the front office made this specific call, we have to look back at the historical context of the Vikings' backfield over the last couple of seasons. Since the departure of their premier explosive game breakers, this offense has sorely lacked a true home run threat from the running back position. Because of that, opposing defenses have literally been able to just sit back in two high safety shells. They've been daring Minnesota to run the football, knowing full well there wasn't a player in that backfield who could take a tiny crease and take it 80 yards to the house. The Vikings entered this offseason absolutely desperate to inject some lightning into that room. You look at the depth chart, and they have Jordan Mason, right? He's a bruising runner, absolutely expected to handle the heavy lifting between the tackles, but let's be honest, he doesn't offer much in the receiving game. They also brought back veteran Aaron Jones on a one-year deal, but he is turning 32 in his 10th NFL season. Father Time is undefeated. So Claiborne, coming off 2,500 rushing yards over his final 3 college seasons, he was supposed to be the youthful, explosive counterbalance. He was viewed as a missing piece to unlock Kevin O'Connell's entire offensive philosophy. The plan was right there, beautifully drawn up on paper.
But here's the thing about the NFL. It does not happen on paper. It happens at light speed. And right now, the blunt, unforgiving reality of training camp is hitting this rookie hard. Judd Zulgad of SKOR North has been watching Claiborne meticulously throughout these sweltering August sessions. And the reports, they are alarming. He charted the rookie with at least 3 drop passes in a single high-leverage session. After returning from a brief injury absence, Zulgad noted the drops were, quote, awful, describing the situation as unplayable. Think about that word, unplayable. Catching the football has to be an absolute prerequisite for a modern running back in this league. And the scary part? Claiborne isn't just dropping tough, highly contested passes with a 250-pound linebacker draped over his back. He is dropping a variety of routine balls in wide-open, completely uncontested situations. This right here exposes the harsh truth of the league. You can have 4.37 track speed. You can have the unbelievable college pedigree. But if you cannot process the speed of the professional game, if you cannot secure the football when the bullets are flying in a live scenario, that college production means absolutely nothing. A dropped pass on 3rd down in the NFL doesn't just end a drive, and it doesn't just cost games. Ultimately, it ends careers.
Which leads us directly into our first major storyline: a stunning potential roster cut and the fall of a drafted rookie.
This is exactly where the tension in the front office really begins to mount. We are staring down the barrel of a shocking move, the potential outright cut of a drafted rookie before he even plays a meaningful regular season snap. Now, here's a fascinating layer to this. The new leadership under Teasley was actually not involved in the April selection process. Interim general manager Rob Brzezinski handled that draft board. But it is Teasley and Kevin O'Connell who have to clean up the mess and deal with this potential draft miss. Cutting a drafted rookie this early is a really tough pill to swallow for any organization, mainly because it's a very public admission of failure. But the stakes are simply too high to hold on to a player based solely on his draft capital. The pre-draft expectation envisioned this elite speed and a dynamic receiving threat capable of completely shifting defensive alignments. The training camp reality is a stark, brutal contrast. And beyond the multiple drop passes, there is another massive red flag threatening his roster spot: 0 special teams value. If you are a backup running back in the National Football League and you are not the primary ball carrier getting 15 to 20 touches a game, you absolutely must contribute heavily on special teams. You have to be willing to sprint down the field, cover kicks, play on the punt return unit, and be a core, violent special teamer. It is a mandatory requirement for survival at the very bottom of a 53-man roster. Claiborne just hasn't shown the aptitude for that phase of the game. So when you combine a total lack of special teams utility with an inability to catch the ball on crucial 3rd downs, the complex mathematical formula of roster construction turns against you very, very quickly.
The immediate consequence of this reality is swift, and it is ruthless. Analysts and insiders around the team have already shifted their roster projections, actively elevating Xavier Scott to take Claiborne's spot on the final 53-man roster. This shows you exactly how fast a depth chart shifts into competitive, cutthroat NFL training camp. Xavier Scott is a player who deeply understands the margins of this league. He knows that every single special teams rep, every blitz pickup where he puts his body on the line, and every secure catch out of the backfield is his lifeline to a multi-million-dollar career. One player's hesitation, one player's series of mental lapses and drops instantly opens a massive, life-changing window of opportunity for someone else who is starving for a job. The NFL waits for absolutely no one, and any loyalty to a draft pick evaporates the exact moment a hungrier, more reliable player steps onto the grass.
But look, training camp isn't just about the heartbreak. We also have to talk about the rookies stealing the spotlight. The true beauty of August football is found in the unexpected triumphs. While the situation in the offensive backfield is incredibly frustrating, head coach Kevin O'Connell and his staff have to be absolutely thrilled with what is unfolding elsewhere on the practice field. Let's be real, after a few years of less-than-ideal draft classes that frankly left the roster devoid of cheap, impact young talent, this franchise desperately needed an injection of youth. And suddenly, we are seeing the emergence of a new core completely disrupting the established roster blueprint. We've got Charles Demings at cornerback, Caleb Banks on the defensive edge, Jake Golday operating as a highly versatile linebacker, and Max Bredesen absolutely punishing defenders as a fullback. These four unheralded rookies are completely defying expectations, they're forcing the coaching staff to rewrite their depth charts on the fly, and they are completely changing the trajectory of this franchise's developmental pipeline.
The single most dominating, electrifying storyline radiating out of Eagan right now surrounds Charles "Chuck" Demings. He is shaping up to be the classic, ultimate underdog, a training camp darling that fans immediately, passionately gravitate toward. I want you to really paint this picture in your mind. It is 90 degrees on the practice field. The bleachers are packed with screaming fans. The intensity is palpable. Now imagine an undrafted rookie cornerback, a guy from a small FCS school, stepping up to the line of scrimmage, going head-to-head and actively frustrating Justin Jefferson repeatedly. Literally, people would have laughed out loud if you predicted this a month ago. Justin Jefferson is arguably the best wide receiver walking the planet right now. He is a route-running technician who routinely embarrasses seasoned veteran all-pro defensive backs on national television. Yet Demings is out there breaking up passes. He had this brilliant picture-perfect rep on a fade stop in the red zone where he mirrored Jefferson step for step. He is not backing down. He isn't intimidated by the superstar aura for a second. He is actively seeking out the most difficult, high-stakes assignment on the field every single day.
And it gets better. Demings deflects a pass in the end zone, jumps up, turns to the offense and yells, "Too small." Think about the sheer audacity that takes. Most young defensive backs come into their first NFL camp with a terrified, please just don't let me mess this up mentality. They play tentative, they play scared, giving a massive 5-yard cushion, just hoping they don't get beat deep and end up going viral on a highlight reel for all the wrong reasons. Not Demings. He wants to prove himself again and again and again. He wants the quarterback to look his way. He wants to get deeply inside the heads of every single receiver lined up across from him. Playing defensive back in the modern pass-heavy NFL requires a special kind of irrational swagger and an incredibly short memory. Demings clearly brought plenty of both from the FCS level, and I'm telling you, it is infectious. It is exactly the kind of alpha attitude this defense has been desperately missing on the perimeter.
Moving down into the trenches, Caleb Banks is out there terrorizing the offensive line. Now, there was a massive cloud of uncertainty surrounding Banks after the draft due to repeated foot injuries. Honestly, nobody knew for sure when he would even be medically cleared to make his camp debut. But he hasn't just been available, he has been an immediate, unblockable force of nature. He's getting a massive amount of early work with the first-team defense. The reports out of camp are consistently highlighting this quote-unquote crazy first step that is wreaking absolute havoc. In the NFL, a defensive lineman's first step is literally everything. When an offense runs a wide zone blocking scheme, which relies entirely on offensive linemen moving laterally in perfect unison, a defensive tackle with an explosive get-off completely destroys the mathematical geometry of the play. Banks is shooting past veteran linemen, completely blowing up run plays in the backfield before the running back even has a chance to read his keys. The pure power and twitchy explosiveness he showcased back in January at the Senior Bowl, it is translated seamlessly to the professional level. If his foot holds up to the grueling, brutal demands of a 17-game NFL season, his natural disruptive abilities make him a major problem for the rest of the NFC North.
Then we have the absolutely fascinating evolution of Jake Golday, selected 51st overall out of Cincinnati. The original plan entering camp seemed pretty straightforward, right? Place him with the middle linebacker group as a traditional protege, let him learn the intricate details of the defense behind a seasoned veteran like Blake Cashman. But defensive coordinator Brian Flores took exactly one look at Golday's fluid movement skills in full pads and completely tore up the script. Flores' new reality utilizes Golday as a highly versatile Swiss Army knife. He wasted absolutely no time putting the rookie on the edge with the first-team defense.
Goldie is effortlessly rotating between playing as a traditional off-ball middle linebacker and then suddenly standing up on the edge as an outside pass rusher. One play is meeting bruising running backs in the A-gap, the next he's dropping into zone coverage to tip passes for interceptions, and the next he's flashing serious bend and speed rushing the quarterback. The immediate comparisons to defensive star Andrew Van Ginkel are completely unavoidable because of this immense flexibility. It allows the coaching staff to brilliantly disguise coverages and confuse opposing quarterbacks pre-snap because they have no idea what Goldie's actual assignment is on any given play.
Rounding out our 4 standout rookies is a player who is actively reviving a position that many modern offensive coordinators thought was dead and buried, the fullback. Max Bredesen, a 5th-round pick out of Michigan, is stepping right into the massive, echoing shoes left by the recently retired Vikings legend C.J. Ham. Minnesota has a really rich, celebrated history of deploying these punishing lead blockers, from the iconic Jim Kleinsasser all the way to Ham himself. And the best part of this transition? Ham has actually taken Bredesen under his wing, actively mentoring him since the moment his name was called on draft day. What Bredesen brings to the field is sheer, unadulterated violence. He is an absolute bruiser. The coaching staff is raving about how he uses his leverage, his size, and his immense strength to effortlessly create running lanes, isolating linebackers, and just violently clearing space in the hole. He flat out loves contact. In a league that is getting smaller and faster at the linebacker position to cover the pass, bringing a 240-pound enforcer onto the field dictates a physical tone and lays a foundational, aggressive attitude for the entire offense.
Which brings us to how the team is overhauling their rushing attack to accommodate all this.
Bredesen's violent emergence could not possibly come at a more crucial time because of the massive overarching adjustments being made to the ground attack. With Damon Claiborne struggling to hold on to the football, the Vikings know they can no longer just rely on raw track speed out of the backfield to bail them out and generate explosive rushing plays. They have to manufacture production through deep football intelligence, structural shifts, and sheer physical dominance at the point of attack. The organization spent the entire spring completely overhauling their rushing philosophy. Assistant head coach Frank Smith is leading this charge, with significant staff changes and entirely new teaching methods. They aren't just lining up and running predictable concepts into loaded boxes anymore. They are utilizing very specific, heavy personnel groupings, which is exactly why having a thumper like Max Bredesen is so critical to the geometry of the offense right now. Taking heavy inspiration from the elite rushing attacks around the league, they are drastically increasing their use of complex pre-snap motion. Sending receivers across the formation forces linebackers to communicate and shift their eyes at the last possible second, creating crucial numerical advantages and hesitation. They are refining their staple concepts to rely heavily on scheme, blocking angles, and leverage, rather than just crossing their fingers and hoping a fast running back can outrun a defensive angle. It is a highly structural, brilliant overhaul designed to perfectly insulate the running backs and dictate the absolute terms of engagement to the opposing defense.
So, how does this all fit together? Let's look at Nolan Teasley's ultimate blueprint for the 53-man roster.
How does all of this micro-level training camp data, the rookie breakouts, the veteran scheme changes, the devastating draft misses, actually translate into the ultimate macro-level puzzle? We are just weeks away from cut-down day, and the first block of practices has provided a fascinating, highly complex blueprint of exactly how Nolan Teasley plans to construct this team. Just look at the massive investment in the defensive front seven. 5 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, and 6 edge or outside linebackers. That is 16 incredibly valuable roster spots strictly dedicated to the defensive front. This tells you absolutely everything you need to know about defensive coordinator Brian Flores' philosophy for the upcoming season. He is building a hyper-aggressive, pressure-heavy, zero-blitz defense designed to completely overwhelm offensive lines and dictate the pace of the game. But then, look at the secondary. Specifically, look at the cornerbacks. Only 4 traditional cornerbacks are currently projected to make this initial 53-man roster. That is a stunningly light room for a league that routinely deploys 3 or 4 wide receivers on every single snap. While Flores did successfully navigate chunks of last season with a heavily depleted secondary, going into a modern NFL season with just 4 corners is a terrifying high-wire act. It tells you exactly how much absolute faith they have in guys like Charles Deming stepping up immediately. And more importantly, it tells you they firmly believe their pass rush will get home and hit the quarterback before those 4 corners ever have to cover for very long.
However, relying entirely on that pass rush to protect a dangerously thin secondary reveals a glaring vulnerability that could completely derail the season. Despite keeping 6 players in that edge and outside linebacker group, there are major depth concerns that cannot be ignored. Yes, you have elite, game-wrecking, blue-chip talent at the very top of the depth chart with Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel. But behind them, the drop-off is steep, and it is terrifying. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is projected to make the team, but he hasn't proven he can be a traditional stand-up edge rusher. His body type and skill set are much better suited playing with his hand in the dirt as a 4-3-5 technique defensive end. This is a massive red flag for a defense that requires heavy rotation to keep its pass rushers fresh in the fourth quarter. Nolan Teasley is looking at a depth chart severely lacking true rotational pass rushers who can bend the edge on third down. This strongly suggests the front office will need to aggressively monitor the waiver wire during final cutdowns or explore the late summer free agent market to bring in a seasoned, veteran mercenary pass rusher, someone in the mold of a Yannick Ngakoue or Justin Houston, to bolster this unit with proven production before Week 1 kicks off.
But the front office roster gymnastics don't stop in the trenches. The margins of this team are being decided in 3 incredibly fascinating, under-the-radar battles that show just how strategic and ruthless this regime has to be. First, the tight end battle. Ben Urasek has played well, but 6th-round pick Gavin Bartholomew is actually overtaking him right now, simply because Bartholomew possesses a far superior ability to attack downfield with his fluid movement skills, violently stretching the seams of the defense. Second, the punter strategy. Pay attention to this, because it is an absolute masterclass in cap and roster management. Veteran Johnny Hecker is projected to win the active job, but the team will likely stash young Brett Thorson on the practice squad by utilizing the specific international pathway player rule. This effectively secures their booming punter of the future without having to eat a highly valuable 53-man roster spot this season. It's genius. Finally, the safety hinge. The entire bottom half of that defensive backfield relies completely on the pending decision of franchise legend Harrison Smith. He is in the twilight of a Hall of Fame caliber career. Does the Hitman have one last violent, legendary season left in him? His decision to step onto the field to ring the Jalar horn one last time or to finally hang up the cleats dictates the fate of every single young safety fighting for a job behind him. Everything on this roster is intimately connected.
And of course, we absolutely cannot talk about the final roster without addressing the most important, heavily scrutinized position in all of professional sports. The quarterback room currently has Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, and J.J. McCarthy locked in. The competition in camp has been fierce, highly publicized, and endlessly debated between Murray and McCarthy. But what happens when the dust finally settles and the regular season actually arrives? Here is a fascinating, franchise-altering, speculative nugget bubbling up from these roster projections. If Kyler Murray is officially named the locked-in, undisputed starter for the season, would Nolan Teasley actually explore a stunning, blockbuster trade involving J.J. McCarthy? Think about the massive draft capital you could recoup from a desperate franchise that suddenly loses its starting quarterback to a preseason injury. A first-round talent on a rookie deal is literally the most valuable commodity in the league. Keeping 3 high-profile names in that quarterback room is wildly expensive in terms of both roster space and potential trade leverage. Moving McCarthy would send absolute shockwaves through the entire NFL. It is a bold, highly controversial scenario, but it is exactly the kind of ruthless calculation that has analysts and fans on the absolute edge of their seats as this camp progresses.
As cutdown day rapidly approaches, we are watching the foundational pillars of a franchise being poured in real time, under the intense, unforgiving scrutiny of a fan base that is absolutely desperate for a championship. We have an undrafted FCS corner fearlessly locking down a global superstar. We have a highly touted, incredibly explosive running back dropping the football and potentially throwing away his dream job. We have massive, highly volatile structural gambles being made on the defensive side of the ball. Will these late-round rookie hits, shocking draft misses, and aggressive schematic shifts ultimately define Nolan Teasley's legacy as a general manager before his first official season even begins? The preseason is about to unfold under the lights, and the stakes for this organization have never, ever been higher. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. If you want to stay ahead of every single cut, trade, and rumor, you are in the exact right place because your channel is NFL Nexus. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, comment your opinion down below on who survives cutdown day, and support the channel by becoming a member. We'll see you on the next one.